with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and so happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. How do we do that? By sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pod, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Amazon Music, Audible, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have two wonderful guests for you today. First up, Alexandra Horowitz. She'll be here to celebrate her book, The Year of the Puppy. And later on in the show, we'll be welcoming back our friend Ellwyn Autumn. She'll be here to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's titled A Fish Named Fancy. We would like to invite you to embark on a transformative journey with The Invisible Backpack, A Life of Courage, written by William Hartwick. Are you burdened by past hurts, grief, or trauma? William's heartfelt narrative, born from his own struggles with depression and Tourette syndrome, offers a pathway to lightening your load. Just like you, he knows the weight of an invisible backpack, growing heavier as life unfolds. But in his touching story, William invites you to courageously unpack it, making space for forgiveness, acceptance, tolerance, and love. Join William on a profound exploration of healing, blessings, and inner strength. Through William's vulnerability, he reveals the power of embracing your true self. Don't miss this inspirational tale of resilience and hope. Order your copy of The Invisible Backpack today and embark on a journey of self-discovery and courage. Get ready for a heartwarming adventure in Mommy's Day Off, the delightful picture book written by Jacqueline Christine. When young Louie's mom has to be away for a day, he's in for a wild ride with his dad. From waffle and ice cream breakfast to Wild West battles, they embark on an unforgettable journey filled with laughter and bonding. But as the day unfolds, Louie realizes there's a special magic that only his mom can bring to their home. Join Louie as he discovers the irreplaceable role his mom plays in his life, making Mommy's Day Off a touching tale of family, love, and the unique bond between a mother and her child. Get your copy today at Amazon or at JacquelineChristine.com. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by The Adventures of Toby Baxter, Book 2, River Home for the Holidays. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read written by Tim Wright. River Home for the Holidays delivers a captivating blend of humor, danger, and inspiration. For lovers of fantasy with mythical creatures, this book is a must-read, promising a thrilling and heartwarming adventure. Dive into the enchanting world of River Home alongside Toby Baxter, and you won't be disappointed. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read, great middle grade novel. You want to add this to your family library. The Adventures of Toby Baxter, Book 2, River Home for the Holidays, written by Tim Wright. Join us right now from New York City. Our guest is here today to celebrate her young readers edition of The Year of the Puppy. Please welcome to the show, Alexandra Horowitz. Hey, Alexandra, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, Jed.
I'm excited to have you. Alexandra and I were talking about my dogs and my daughter's dogs, and we're having so much fun. I know we're going to have a great time talking about the Year of the Puppy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, puppies are always good conversation fodder, I find.
And they're so much, it's hard. I mean, it's easy to be frustrated with the puppy and to be exhausted with the puppy. But it's hard not to smile when there's a puppy jumping all over you.
I mean, I have to say that my career choice, studying dog behavior, allows me to spend a lot of time, watching dogs and some time getting jumped on by dogs. And I just couldn't have picked a better career.
Yeah.
It's just delightful.
Yeah. How did you get into this field?
Kind of accidentally. I was interested in studying cognition of animals, and I was not looking to study dogs at all. I loved dogs. I lived with dogs, but I didn't think that they were kind of a type of science subject, right? Like if people who were interested in studying cognition studied other primates or studied big-brained animals like dolphins that we know are very smart. So dogs weren't really on my radar, but I accidentally wound up studying play behavior, and dogs play a lot. So presto, there I was studying dog play all of a sudden, not just taking my dog to the park to play. And, after that, I just found that dogs themselves were too interesting a topic to change to another species.
Yeah. Well, dogs are fascinating. I'm fascinated when I think about here in Boston. We live in as far away from downtown Boston as you can be and still be within the city limits. And there's a wildlife sanctuary just like right over there, just over the fence. And so we have lots of coyotes in the area, and they're part of the dog family, and there are wolves, and they're part of the dog family. And I'm really curious, how did we get from the wolf and the coyote to my beagle?
Exactly. It's a great question. Those other canids, wolves and coyotes and lots of other species, all descended from common ancestors. So the wolf that you might find, we rarely find, but you might see in the wild in North America, is descended from some ancient wolf. And the dog, your beagle, and my mutts are also both descended from some ancient wolf. So they're the closest relative to dogs, the wolf, but it looks like what probably happened some 15 or 20,000 years ago is that there were some wolves who were maybe less fearful of humans than wolves naturally and rightly are. And at the same time, there were people who found a use for or had an interest in those wolves that were like sort of self-taming a little bit. And the two came together slowly over time. It was a really long time before we started selectively breeding those animals. You could call them like early dogs, or kind of self-domesticated wolves, and started making them into like different shapes of animal and different sizes of animal and animals that you'd use for different functions. But eventually we began to do that, here's a guard dog. Here's a dog who hunts with you. Here's a companion dog. And then we started refining it even more to like, oh, we like dogs with a short nose, or we like dogs with this kind of cool coat. And that's how you wind up with a beagle with short legs and a really good nose. And on the other hand, like a Great Dane who's, hundreds of pounds more. And whose nose is 3 feet from the ground.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. And I really didn't realize it until just a few years ago that things like beagles and Great Danes and bulldogs were kind of not manufactured, but created by all that selective breeding.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the breeding that make the specific breeds we see today, when we think of purebred dogs, this all really started in the 1800s, 19th century, in England first, and then in the U.S. Before that, there were definitely different types of dogs and dogs who looked different, but it's only 200 years ago or less that we started really selectively breeding dogs to like look even more beagly or to even more Great Dane or even more like a Labrador. And that's changed the breeds significantly, so that they're genetically very similar within the breed. That's pretty recent. Yeah. And it's absolutely made by us. So we're a big part of Dog's story.
That's kind of mind-boggling. We're talking 3 or 4 generations of people, and we've done all this in such a short period of time. Absolutely,
right? And it makes you think, how could we change dogs in the future? Maybe that would be to the dog's benefit, potentially. And I also think about your coyote neighbors. Like, a lot of coyotes are interbreeding with dogs. Is that going to change the wild coyote or wolf populations, and how will that happen? So, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of changes in the, future of the young readers you reach with this podcast. Like, that, they're definitely going to see some changes in how we live with dogs.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, one of the neat things about your this book, The Year of the Puppy, it's that kids who have dogs, they obviously love dogs. My daughter, when she was 4, she wanted a dog, and a border collie selected us, we had no idea what a border collie was at the time, and it was a beautiful, beautiful pet. But I know my daughter was absolutely fascinated, and what a great way to take that love of this creature and give her an introduction to the STEM fields. Like, yes, you have a dog and you need to feed it, but how much more can we learn about this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think dogs are a great way. Dog cognition research, which is really what I practice, is a great way into science for young minds, and especially so because, like your daughter, lots of kids just have a natural interest in and curiosity about animals. And the dog is a convenient one. It's right there. It can be in your house. And so a lot of people think, well, how am I going to parlay that into like future work? Or maybe, do you become a veterinarian? Well, it now turns out that there are science fields which are just about learning more about those animals. And some of the studies that are done, absolutely, young people could do themselves at home. So that's, I think, a neat thing about studying dogs, is seeing how accessible it is and how it translates to science.
Yeah. So as somebody that studies dog cognition, are you trying to find out what does it mean when the dog's wagging his tail and he's yawning and all that kind of stuff that we hear, all these different theories from people who probably don't know what they're talking about?
There's a lot of people who talk about dogs who don't know what they're talking about, for sure. But, I do believe that people who say they love dogs, but not everybody is actually trying to observe dogs systematically and over time. So, yeah, we do studies which just look at behaviors, common behaviors, and try to understand the meaning of the behavior, or what, if there's a behavior that it predicts, one behavior that leads to another behavior. And we also study behaviors to see what it can tell us about what the dog knows or understands or perceives or wants, everything about their cognition. So in the former case we're studying right now in the lab, we're studying shaking behavior, sort of that wet dog shake that dogs do even when they're not wet, and to see the context for its use, because people have speculated, but nobody really has studied it. That's really fun. And on the other hand, we have studies where we design a little theater in the lab and have dogs come in and show us through their smelling or through their looking or through their approach behavior if they can, for instance, distinguish between 2 scents or recognize their owner's smell over somebody else's smell. And so that tells us about what they know about the world too. Those are basically the 2 facets of dog cognition research, and they both involve looking at behavior.
Yeah. You probably, I don't know if there is an answer to this, but dogs and humans seem to have this connection that you don't see in with other animals. Certainly, lots of families have cats, and the cats are their own thing. They have their own mind, and you can make a cat mad, and that cat will stay mad at you forever. A dog, you step on its tail by accident, and it's like, ouch, but I still love you. there's one of our neighbors down the street has a Great Dane mixed with something, and their 1-year-old child climbs all over this dog, and the dog is just climb on me, stomp on me. I don't care. I love you. I'll never do anything to hurt you. What's that connection? Do we understand that yet?
I think there are a lot of facets to it. I mean, it goes back to maybe this first part of the domestication story I was mentioning, which is that maybe what happened was that wolves sort of became less fearful of humans and sort of made them more open to humans. And that was one of the first stages of the domestication process. So that's what we're going to see in dogs today as well. This not being as fearful to humans, being more open, being more flexible, being more receptive. Some argue, only maybe partially tongue-in-cheek, that cats are not really domesticated at all. They haven't undergone the same kind of selection process that dogs have. And then dogs are also interesting in this way that we are really responsive to them. They look us in the eyes, they gaze at us, they seem to kind of understand us through that gaze. And we respond to them as though they do. And so that we kind of give them a lot of credit in addition to them being interested in and not scared of us. Mm-hmm. And those two things are, can be an explosive combination. And that all that forgiving behavior, that sort of not being fearful of us, not being aggressive to us, that allows for the forgiveness. The tolerance of us allows for like the child who climbs on the dog's back, although I'll never recommend that. Not all dogs are as easygoing about it, for sure. And so that sort of more or less easygoing nature enables them to kind of fit into our lives. And often, though, I think we assume they understand or know us maybe better than they do. Right? I mean, I do think they're very good observers of us, but I don't know that they're as perceptive of all the things in our life as we think. Mm-hmm. But it works out for them, right? If I think my dog is, for instance, knows when I'm sad and feels empathetic, I'm going to feel more strongly toward her because it feels like she's feeling empathetic to me. So it works out for the dog's favor.
Yeah. One of the things I recently had the privilege of touring El Salvador with a group called Clowns Without Borders and performing all over the country. And one of the things, in addition to being a beautiful country with beautiful people, they have hundreds and thousands of feral dogs. And I was really surprised at how unafraid and how friendly those feral dogs were. It seems even without the giving them the dogs homes and intentionally feeding them and giving the love and attention we give to our dogs, there's still that connection with these animals.
I think it's a really good observation. I would say that scientists mostly call those types of dogs free-ranging, not feral, because feral implies that they sort of become wild, and they haven't. They're just not living in somebody's home, right? Like not living on a property. But like you observed, they're really still connected to humans in an important way. And they actually are still dependent on humans or human societies for their food. Most free-ranging dogs eat a huge amount of garbage. And that might have actually be what those early wolves who lived around humans and decided to become less fearful of humans ate as well. The things that we threw out, right? There's plenty of nutritious material still that we throw out. And so 75% of the world's dogs are estimated to be free-ranging dogs, not owned dogs like your beagle and my mutts. They're literally living without homes, but they still subsist based on kind of proximity to humans. So that friendliness is that kind of optimism that like a relationship could still be forged there. And lots of people do bring in into the house dogs who've been free-ranging dogs. For many dogs, temperamentally, that works really well. That's not a difficult transition.
Fascinating. What's the biggest misconception that people have about dogs, do you think?
Oh, there's so many, Jen.
Well, share a bunch.
one of the big ones is that, I mean, while we can really look to wolf behavior to explain some of dog behavior, right? Because they're definitely related. They're not just like tame wolves, right? And they're not going to become wolves again instantly. And so like that, the free-ranging dogs, for instance, they're not really more wolf-like. They don't hunt in packs the way that wolves do. They don't live in family packs the way that wolves do. And they don't always have the same relationships with each other that we think of as wolves having. For instance, one of the things people have a misunderstanding about is that they think that you need to be dominant with your dog because otherwise the dog is going to be dominant over you, right? That there's a dominance hierarchy in wolves. And that's wrong. You know, wolves do not form a dominance hierarchy unless you call parents dominance, right? Like they live in groups, family packs where parents live with their offspring, essentially. And yeah, the parents run the show, but the offspring aren't trying to like outdo their parents, right? And take over. They might leave the pack, but they're just younger members of the pack. And that's the same with dogs too. So sometimes looking at wolf behavior to try to explain dog behavior leads to a lot of misunderstandings about dogs with humans.
Wow. What is the one thing that we know about dogs that would surprise most people?
I think one thing that people think they know is how good smellers dogs are, but it really surprises them to see just how good they are. I mean, I think not only do they know you by smell, they can recognize you by sight, but they know you by smell. They know each other by smell. They communicate with each other by smell. And they probably even know like the passage of time through smell. So they're really living in this very profound smell world, olfactory world, which exists in parallel with our world, but we don't really see it. We think that they're just kind of cooperating and living in the visual world we are, understanding things the way we are, but probably not. They smell the world as we see it. So I think that surprises people a lot, even though everyone knows dogs have a good nose. Yeah. It's way beyond that.
Yeah. I just find this fascinating. We always ask, not always, but we oftentimes ask authors, what kind of conversations can you have while you're reading an author's book together with their kids? I'm imagining that the Year of the Puppy can launch lots of not only conversations, but observations. What kind of things, what kind of ongoing activities do you think families can start getting involved with as they're reading the Year of the Puppy?
If they're living with the dog, the first thing that anybody can do right away is just start observing their dog as though they don't know what they're going to do, as though they don't know the dog. Imagine that the dog is like an alien animal who's arrived in your house, and start observing them and thinking about what they're doing anew. So I see my dog, sleeping on the couch, and I think, well, why are they there? Why is that a place that they want to be? And start coming up with ideas about why they're there, as opposed to just like being used to it and familiar with it. Start looking at, for instance, when your dog tries to get your attention for something. You'll notice if your dog starts barking, but is there anything that happened before your dog started barking where they might have been trying to get your attention? You notice they were in the room with you. Maybe they came over and nudged you. Like, start making observations about things which seem like ordinary behaviors, and then you might start seeing something that you had overlooked.
Yeah.
Like the reason the dogs want to be on the couch is because that's where the people are on the couch, and they really follow people from room to room. Or the reason they start barking to get your attention is because you didn't mind them when they were doing the 3 other things to try to get your attention that happened before that. So your dog is ripe for your observations, and I think you'll start noticing things about what they're actually doing if you just spend concerted time watching them.
Yeah. And, I think that activity is a great way just to help our kids be more mindful in all of their day.
Yeah. I mean, the types of attention and empathy I already see kids bringing to animals and which I hope they will continue to bring to animals, can be turned toward other people as well, right? Interest in animals and curiosity about animals is an interest in the world and in the people of the world. So I think it's a great thing to encourage in our young folk.
Yeah. I had this really fun observation of my little beagle, Augie, who's mixed with something else. But he has his little habits, and he'll sleep in one spot in the morning and sleep in another spot. And there's a spot on the couch, on one side of the couch, that he is on at 7 p.m. almost every single night. And we had a guest over, and he was sitting in that spot. And 7:15, 7:20 came, and my dog just sat in front of him, staring at him, making the guest feel very uncomfortable, and to the point where the guest is like, what's he trying to say? And I said, you're in his spot. You're a human. You can stay there if you want, but that's what he's trying to tell you. And he moved to the other end of the couch, and the dog popped up, sat, and went to a spot, and was very happy.
That's a great observation because, you know, that's the type of thing, a dog sitting there staring at you, that we tend to just make attributions about, like, oh, he thinks you're new, he wants something from you, whatever these things are. But dogs are, you know, usually pretty timid. They're asking for what they want, and they're asking by just being persistent and sitting there and waiting. Mm-hmm. And that you already knew that there was something that the dog wanted that was underneath the person. That's great. That allows you to see, as other people might not, how they make requests, and, you know, that they have favorite spaces. These features about the dog that make them personal. I think that's really important to see.
Yeah, yeah. If there's a family out there and they have young kids, and the parents may not have grown up with dogs, but the kids really want a dog, what advice would you give to that family?
I would say first, you know, read everything you can about, you know, living with young dogs. It's really easy to get a dog. In other words, you can buy a dog or adopt a dog pretty easily, but then that dog is with you 24/7, right? All the time, and has a lot of needs, and it's hard. There's not a book out there that says, like, here are the 7 things you need, and now it'll be fine with your dog, right? It's like a growing individual. So read as much as you can about what they're like. Mm-hmm. Do you know how to prepare yourself? Because I think having the right expectations is going to lead to having a good relationship with that dog. And so you find out about puppies, and then you find out about the puppy you want to bring into your home, or the adult dog you want to bring into your home. Like, find out as much as you can about them before they come home with you. Don't impulsively get a dog and think it'll work out. It might, but it's going to be a struggle along the way, and it can go so much better if you just do a little research ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah, breeds are very different. Is there a breed that you would recommend for, you know, kind of most families?
I think I always recommend mixed breed dogs, frankly, because I think that having expectations that a breed is going to be, a member of a breed is going to be whatever the breed standard says, leads to having those difficult expectations. As I say, most science has found that there's more difference within members of a single breed than there is between breeds.
Wow.
On all sorts of different personality characteristics. So if you think you're getting a golden retriever because their build is being good with children, but you happen to get a golden retriever who really doesn't like children, that's going to feel like a big disappointment to you. Easier to go meet a dog at a shelter who the shelter personnel have absolutely assessed, they've known him or her over time, and can tell you, yeah, this dog does like children a lot. This dog doesn't. This dog's rambunctious. This dog isn't. You know, knowing them as a personality is better than choosing a breed on the basis of what that breed is supposed to be like.
Yeah, that's great advice. We should tell everybody where they can go to find the Year of the Puppy and then find out more about you.
Yeah, the Year of the Puppy is published by Penguin, and it should be available wherever books are sold. Yeah. It's widely out there. Get it at your independent bookstore if you can, or get it at your library.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Year of the Puppy. Our guest has been Alexandra Horowitz. Alexandra, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on, Jed.
This episode is brought to you by Jane Escapes to the Jungle of Individuality, the award-winning, captivating children's book written by Jennifer Nestor. You are going to love this book. It celebrates the beauty of uniqueness and self-acceptance. It inspires young readers to embrace their own individuality by covering important topics like bullying, high-functioning anxiety, and mindfulness. This vibrant picture book is perfect for kids ages 4 to 9. Jane Escapes to the Jungle of Individuality is available for pre-order right now. And you can take advantage of exclusive early bird reward specials starting April 29th through Kickstarter. These rewards are really great. Signed hardcover copies, Jane plushies, Jane backpacks, posters, and more. Do yourself a favor. Go right now to JenEasterAuthor.com and click the pre-order button today. This episode is brought to you by Nursery Rhymes for Kinder Times, written by Pam Gittleman. Do you read or sing nursery rhymes with young kids in your life? Ever thought about what those rhymes are actually saying? Like 3 blind mice get their tail cut off by a carving knife, Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall and he can't be put back together again, and London is a place where bridges fall down? If you're uncomfortable with these dark, irrelevant traditional rhymes, but understand the strong, positive impact that rhyming stories have on language, literacy, musicality, and imagination, then we've got the perfect book for you. Nursery Rhymes for Kinder Times by Pam Gittleman. This award-winning book contains 8 updated nursery rhymes designed to nurture kindness, empathy, and gratitude, with beloved characters and situations that allow them to illustrate a range of emotions while modeling what it means to be kind and compassionate. This collection will delight and educate a new generation of children and the adults who love them. Plus, each rhyme is coupled with emojis and discussion questions to support the social and emotional intelligence of preschoolers. It's the perfect gift for new parents or grandparents, a great addition to your home or school library, and a unique take on teaching kindness and language skills to our youngest learners. Get your copy today. Nursery Rhymes for Kinder Times by Pam Gittleman. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Join us right now from right outside the beautiful city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Our guest is returning to the show to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called A Fish Named Fancy. Please welcome to the show our very fancy guest, Ellwyn Autumn. Hey, Ellwyn, how are you?
I'm doing really good, Jed. Thanks so much for having me on the show again.
I'm super delighted that you're back here on the show again. Ellwyn and I were just talking a little bit. She is a teacher. And I was telling her how my beautiful wife recently retired after teaching for 34 years. Teaching really is, it's a wonderful profession, but it is very difficult, and it's a profession that people, they're having a real hard time getting young people to enter the field.
Yeah. When my son was in college, he didn't know anybody who was going into teaching. Mm-hmm. I feel I may have jaded my children because as they were growing up, I taught in the school district of Philadelphia, and I would come home and be like, do anything but teaching. So I don't know if a lot of us older folks have tarnished the profession, but I think it's also due to people putting their noses in where they don't belong. Mm-hmm. A lot of politicians have politicized and weaponized education. And I mean, a lot of the young people today, they're already struggling to make ends meet, and a lot of educators don't make, what they're worth.
Right, right. Well, you bring up a good point, because I think it is true. Education has been weaponized by both sides of the political spectrum, and that is a very, it's not a good thing. And I was just recently had a performance at a public library in Boston, and even on the library end, this is a branch library that serves a very specific neighborhood. In the neighborhoods here in Boston, as in Philadelphia, as in Baltimore, as in every big city, the neighborhoods are very, very different. And this system is moving away from kind of local decision-making, and it's moving to the point where all decisions as to what books to carry and what programs to carry are happening at the central office. And that there might be some good reasons for it budget-wise and whatnot, but it's I don't know if it works on the ground. I don't think somebody in an office in downtown anywhere can really make great decisions on how best to serve and the different neighborhoods in the city, like Boston, Philly, Los Angeles. I think the people who are there working with the kids, working with the families, probably have a better idea of what those kids need.
Oh, I agree 100%. And I was listening to one of your other episodes mm-hmm. with the author of Little Lovable Lucy, You're So Big, and yes. Her book in Florida got banned mm-hmm. just because of a little pride flag. I thought that was really unfortunate and sad for the children who aren't going to be able to read that book.
Yeah, and the really sad thing is it's not even a pride flag. It's just a rainbow painted on a mailbox, and the entire illustration is about a 1/4 inch big, wow. And it's part of this big 2-page spread. So I don't know. But anyways, we're not here to solve those political problems. We're here to celebrate a fish named Fancy. So tell us all about this great new book.
Well, the original version was written, a really long time ago. And to be perfectly honest, it stunk. So a couple years ago, one of my children is a part of the queer community. And they were like, Mom, why can't people just get along? Like, why can't they just accept me for who I am? I don't know what it was, but a bell went off in my head. And then I was able to write Fancy and give it the justice that it deserved. So yeah, that was exciting.
So tell us a little bit about Fancy and the adventure that we'll be reading about in the book.
Well, first of all, Fancy's a boy. Mm-hmm. I think it's important for boys and girls to be able to feel that they're fancy and not worry about it. Mm-hmm. So it's about Fancy, and he lives in a school of fish, and they all make circle bubbles. But Fancy gets bored of making circle bubbles, and he wants to make different shapes. But the other fish are like, nah, you can't do that. If you want to stay here, you just have to make circle bubbles. So Fancy's like, all right, then I'm going to go somewhere where I can express myself freely. And on his travels, he comes across an oyster. Yeah, an oyster named Ruby, who can only make different colored pearls that are soft. She can't make black and white ones. And all of her friends tease her. And then he meets a squid named Glimmer, who can make sparkly ink. And when he tries to teach his other friends how to do it, they can't, and they get mad at him. So it's about these three friends just, connecting, finding each other, and making their own little community where they can be themselves.
Interesting. This is, as somebody who likes to dress up very, very fancy, especially when I'm on stage, I certainly can relate to that, and also can relate to the fact that I received a certain amount of grief, especially back in high school when I would dress up fancy. And so, yeah, it is, it's a difficult kind of thing, this pressure to kind of fit in and do what everybody else is doing. I think kids feel that at a very young age.
Yeah, and then watching my own children grow up and, how they could be ostracized from different groups. And I just want kids to feel, you're not alone, and, this group of people that you're talking to might not understand you, but there is someone out there who wants to be your friend. Sometimes, you have to work for it. But everybody has their tribe. And that's what I'm trying to say in the book.
I like that idea that everybody has their tribe. I think it's so important. One of the things that we've talked about here in the podcast is we've really celebrated family, but not only the biological family that we are all born into, but the families that we create by choice, the people that we welcome into our lives and come to become part of our family. I think in a lot of ways that those are certainly relationships that are more important and deeper than a lot of the relationships we have through blood.
Yeah, I have a friend I've been friends with since high school, and she's like one of my dearest friends. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of history, but we're not related in, right, like you said, through family, but we chose to be a family.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm curious, what was your son's reaction the first time he read A Fish Named Fancy?
Actually, I don't think my son has heard it, but my youngest, they really like it. They actually helped me edit it one last final go, and and it's dedicated to them and my son. So wonderful. They appreciated that, yeah. And they hope that it helps kids, feel like they're included.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the as a teacher, you must. And as a teacher of young kids, do you notice kids at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, are they already starting to form cliques and kind of groups and kind of, if not blatantly, but kind of just, ostracizing certain kids?
Well, last year at the beginning of the school year, they were all, new, and they started to form their little friend groups. But then we had one child start a little bit later, and she turned 5, so she was older than some of the other kids, because we Head Start services 3 to 5 year olds, and she started saying, "Well, I don't want to be your friend anymore," and then it became like an epidemic throughout the whole classroom. So I guess it depends on the group of kids, mm-hmm, and where those children are coming from. Mm-hmm. I would say overall, no, yeah, but like I said, it only takes one child to come in and start saying stuff like that, and then it spreads. Yeah, yeah. So that was hard. We struggled with that at the end of the school year.
Yeah, I'm sure. Because there are other folks that are out there that struggle with similar situations. Were you in your team able to find a strategy that seemed to help a whole lot?
I just read different books, mm-hmm, and my class last year was my focus group for A Fish Named Fancy, and they loved it. And then a lot of modeling, and sometimes you just have to observe the kids when they're playing and catch it in the moment, so make, mm-hmm, it like a teachable moment. So you just kind of have to be on top of it, pay attention. And then you also have to give the children the vocabulary, the words. If someone's hurting you, you don't have to take that. Mm-hmm. You can tell them, I don't like when you say that to me. Or, I would tell the kids, try to handle it yourself. And then I would also tell them, well, you don't have to stand there and take it if they're being mean to you. You can go play with someone else, which is what Fancy and his friends do. Sometimes you just have to remove yourself from the situation, because no matter how much you talk to some people, they're just not going to listen to the message. So I think
that's a really important lesson for kids. I think every kid would love to be friends with everybody and be accepted by everybody. And I know parents oftentimes, if their kid is being excluded, will go in and really try hard to get every, I've heard of parents calling other parents and saying, will you please tell your kid to play with my kid? And I don't know if that's the best strategy. And I don't know if it's as great a strategy as what, Fancy is learning is just like, hey, it ain't happening with that kid, but there are other kids out there that I can be friends with.
Exactly.
Yeah. When do you think kids are really able to embrace that message? Because, when you're 4 or 5 and you're in a classroom at a daycare or kindergarten and there's only 15, or if you're in an inner city, 30 other kids in your kindergarten, there's not a lot of kids there's not that big ocean of potential friends that Fancy has. How do we help support those kids knowing that, okay, it's not happening now. It might not happen in this class, but be patient, believe, remember how beautiful and special you are, and you are going to find those friends. You are going to find that tribe.
Well, I think that sometimes maybe it has to go beyond the classroom. Like if the child has a particular interest, say they like to draw or play a sport, maybe some extracurricular activities. And then you have the kids who like to read. You could maybe start a little book club at your school. I think it would all just be trying to find what the child likes and then trying to find like-minded people who hopefully they'll click with.
Yeah, I agree. It's amazing that teachers at you, and we've had a number of other teachers who are authors. It's amazing that you have the time and the energy to write in addition to teach and grading papers and preparing classes and all the other 1,000 things teachers have to do.
Well, I'm going to be honest. Last year was my first year back with Head Start. And so I was new to the curriculum. I was new to everything. So I didn't do a whole lot of writing last year. I was focused on getting my lessons and learning the curriculum. And by the weekend, I was basically just a vegetable. So I've been spending the whole summer, getting back on the wagon. And, but years ago, I used to be able to lesson plan, write. I don't know how I did it. My kids were little. I'd get up early. I'd make lunches. I'd get them off to school. I'd come home and work out and still have time to write. Now I'm like, oh my God, I made it home.
Well, maybe it's just finding that groove, and you're going to find it, in shortly. I'm wondering for your writing process. One of the things you said to us early on is that, when you first wrote, the first version of what became A Fish Named Fancy, to use your words, it really stunk. And you didn't throw it away, and you found inspiration for it, and brought it back to life. Was this something that, was it the story just kind of rolling around in your head, or, that statement that your son made talking about, why can't I be accepted by people? Why can't they just accept me for who I am? Did that spark and remind you of the story? How did that work? How did this revival come about?
Well, actually, all my stories kind of float around inside my head. And then sometimes something like that will happen, and then it'll bring that particular story to the forefront. Because, like, Fish Named Fancy, for years, I was like, why can't I just get this one right? And then, just it clicked, and then it happened. So I guess when it's supposed to happen, it'll happen.
That's something that we've heard from folks. There are some stories that just aren't ready to be born when you first bring them out. I remember a trucker kid, Kara Gordon Exter, was telling that about her most recent book that I think she said took 10 years from, when she first put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard before it became the story that she was really happy with.
Yeah, my stories usually take me a little while because I'll do the first draft and then I'll let it sit and I'll go back to it and I'll let it sit some more. And yeah.
Wonderful. Hey, tell me, what else is going on? Are you working on a new project right now?
I've got a couple. I started a alphabet scrapbook series. I have like 4 or 5 written. And I'm working on getting the ebook just published like last week. Mm-hmm. Having a little trouble with the print version. So I sent it off to my savior, Ron Melanson, who's helping me. And then my youngest and I, wrote during COVID. I started a Halloween poem and I was like, getting stuck on it. And then my youngest helped. So that one is also trying to get that one done by October 1st.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about A Fish Named Fancy and be the first to know about that Halloween book that might be coming out.
Well, you can find everything through my website, ellwynautumn.com. And then all of my books are available on Amazon. And I also make education. I'm a teacher. I make educational resources to go with all my picture books. I have a couple novels. I haven't written any lessons for them, but you can access the lessons through my website too. They're all free. Anything that's related to my books is free.
Excellent. And that website was ellwynautumn.com, correct?
Yes.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of the brand new picture book. It's called A Fish Named Fancy. Our guest has been Ellwyn Autumn. Hey, Ellwyn, thanks for being back with us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Jed.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, please be sure to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids. At Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok. At Jedley Magic on Twitter. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. When you're on our YouTube channel, there's a lot of things there. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube. You can also find our Drawing with Your Kids videos and our STEM is Family Fun videos. Drawing with Your Kids gives you and your kids a chance to learn how to draw characters from the illustrators who created them. Many of the guests who've been here on the show come back and teach us how to draw their beloved characters. STEM is Family Fun. That is a great series of videos where you and your kids learn how to do some very fun STEM experiments in your home using items you can typically find in your home. And we've collaborated with some amazing folks, the folks over at the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. You don't want to miss it. Find it all on our YouTube channel. And we would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, download our free online magazine, visit our Reading With Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame, and use the contact button up at the top of the page to send us a message. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better, and let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. And if you are an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest. Being a guest is fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlit fans about your great children's book. You can also learn about our effective and affordable promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guests, Alexandra Horowitz and Ellwyn Autumn. I also want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Nick Warner, Kyoko Ito, Kayla Newland, Kristen Barrett, Sydney Swan, Hannah Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.